TikTok, it's time to rock, ladies and gentlemen. It's a special episode for the channel. We don't do this often. I think this is the third time we've got together. It's Jim. I got chucked out of a Van Halen concert, V, on the bottom there holding us up. And next to us we've got John C., also known as Conks, but we're going to call him Johnny tonight. We're going to call him Johnny. How are you, brothers?
Yeah, subscribe. Keep on subscribing.
I like that button. That's cool. If you guys didn't notice in the green room, I was like,
oh yeah, I saw that.
I may randomly do that throughout the show, Andrew. I hope
Keep
you don't mind.
people.
Don't be distracted, but
hey, Simon.
It's all good. It's all good. Look,
hey, Tom.
My apologies. We had kind of scheduled maybe to do this show last week, but I kind of forgot that I'd already double booked. So, guys, I really appreciate the fact that you've put back a bit of time to come out and hang with us
Of course.
a week later. Look, we had a great time before the show in the green room. We've got a few things here to talk to you guys about. If you guys in the chat want to have some questions that you want us to discuss, or that you want to discuss in the chat about anything Van Halen or anything that's happened musically that might be related to what we like to talk about over the last couple of weeks, throw them in. But I suppose the big thing, John, you managed to jump on our tribute show a couple of weeks ago and spend a bit of time with us, and you shared some of your experiences. Do you want to sort of like fill us in a little bit there, and then we'll ask Jim to share with us his experiences with the past 2 years with Eddie passing, if that's okay, guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I mean, I just feel like it's kind of settled in a little bit, now. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. That initial sting isn't there as it was, and so I'm looking forward to I miss you too, Tom. I'm looking forward to hopefully the Van Halen camp getting to that point, and releasing something, master some albums. Let's go. Let's get something, something out there, something to keep the interest going on. There's got to be something in those vaults that they could do, but yeah, it's just sad. I just said, we were driving in the car the other night, and my wife, a Van Halen song, I forget what song it was, came on, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that he's dead. He's gone. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's crazy. Right. But it is kind of, it has kind of settled a little bit. The sting is gone. I don't know if how do you feel, Jim? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the day Eddie died. Around here, I'm in the East Coast in Connecticut, so I remember this specifically because, like, after 4:00, due to my job, I have some stuff I have to do, and it was like 4:03, and I'm waiting for some things to come through so I can finish my day. And I happened to get, I'm waiting, and so I got on my Facebook or whatever, or maybe it was Instagram, and it was like within 3 minutes, because I think they tell you like when it was posted, and it was Wolfgang's post saying that his dad died, and I was like, what the hell? And then I messaged my buddies. I'm like, Eddie died, and they thought I was, I don't know, but yeah, like 2 years later, I mean, I feel like Ed's memory is still strong. I mean, I don't think Ed's ever going to be forgotten. I got into it with some guy, and I tend to not do this, but I got into it, I don't know, like 10 days ago with some guy on, he was I forget the post, but it was something about Jimmy Page, and how I kind of just mentioned that, Eddie Van Halen, nobody's done more for guitar. Nobody's done more for like guitar design. Forget about like how great the albums are. Okay. I mean, don't even think about that, but nobody's done more for like guitar design. I mean, Eddie Van Halen basically created the Super Strat and almost put Gibson out of business. I mean, Gibson was creating Super Strats. Remember those? They hired Wayne Charvel to do some kind of like Super Strat stuff. I remember Gary Richrath had one in a video. Anyway, so forget that. Like, people, the whole custom guitar thing, the whole parts guitar thing, it never existed before, Eddie. You know, a custom amps, you know, like, you know, everybody's chasing the Brown sound and, you know, like, you know, I mean, I might get into trouble here, but I don't come across a lot of people that are chasing Jimi Hendrix's tone. Okay. I'm just being honest. I don't think I come across a lot of people that are chasing like Jimmy Page's tone. Right.
Yeah.
But like Eddie's tone, that was revolutionary. And I was just listening to some podcast and they had Niels Lozauer, and he was talking about the same thing, that like Ed revolutionized, you know, just Eddie's sound. Nobody sounded like Eddie. Nobody.
Yep.
Forget about like the tapping stuff. I just mean like the guitar sound, you know.
Multiple sounds too. It's not just one.
Yeah.
I will say there's more than one
yes,
Brown sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Some people are like crazy nutty about the Wet Dry Wet later years, and then people love the first album and the, you know, the Plexi stuff with the Variac. It's just like, you know, it's crazy how many people are just obsessed with all different eras of the sound too. It's not just one, you know. It is.
Yeah, my buddy Jerry. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Jerry Leica here. I met Jerry. Jerry was one of the very first people I met, like when the internet was created. Like I hopped on, and like one of the two first people that I met was Scott Smith and Jerry Leica. And Jerry's built some guitars for me back in the day. So Jerry, man, great to see you. And like he was saying, like this show right here is like a testimony. I mean, how many Van Halen how many shows are there talking about Van Halen? You know what I mean?
There's a few.
There's a few. Yeah. But yeah, he's right. Like this, you know, when my friends and I get around, you know, when we used to hang out, we used to, you know, we talk about Van Halen. That was kind of like the impetus for this VH Con that's happening in a couple of weeks, right? We'd get together, we'd play guitar, and we'd go out to eat, get something to eat, and talk about Van Halen and stuff, you know?
Yeah, we got to talk about that a little later, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right, Jim. You know, and that's all we do here on this channel. And you know, there's as Jim mentioned, you know, there's a lot of formats and channels out there where you guys can get your Van Halen fix. We're just one of them, and you know, we're just fans hanging out. And look at everybody in the chat. You know, we've got Bent. Thank you, Bent, for the contribution to the channel. We appreciate that. Rock Professor Simon Williams, will catch you later. But we're just guys hanging out, Jim, and I love that. I love the perspective. We mentioned this the first time when we got together on the first show that we did. Who would have thought 30 years ago that I would be talking to two guys from the eastern side of the United States live talking about Eddie Van Halen? It's just... you know, maybe I'm a product of my time, and a lot of young cats, a lot of young Zoomers probably take the internet and technology for granted. I certainly don't, because I remember when we didn't have this kind of stuff, Jim and John. So, you know, it's always humbling to hang out and hear what you guys have to say about one of the greatest guys that we've ever had in our lives.
One of my biggest regrets is that we didn't have the internet years earlier, because I knew who Jim Bombas was back in 1996. I always say that. I knew from the VH mailing list. I knew Jim Bombas from there. And I know all these guys, Rob Johnson. I knew all these names. Names pop up all the time. It's like, I know that guy. I know. But it's just like, had we had this technology that we have now, this group of friends, we would have all been getting together. Keith Campbell lived like, 25 minutes from me. He grew up. I would go, Keith, we got to go to the Garden and see Van Halen.
That's what I mean. Like I'll tell Conks, I'm like, dude, man, I was at Madison Square Garden 90. Hey, man, say, so was I. It's like, it would have been great if we knew each other back then, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the
but
only
that's what I was saying. Like my band, at the end of every October, we do this annual like commemorative Van Halen show, and like I was talking to the people in attendance last year, and I was telling them, we're all here. You guys love Van Halen, we love Van Halen. I'm like, all my friends, I was putting my friends in the back. I'm like, all those guys back there that are my friends, I met them through Van Halen and playing guitar. I mean, everybody I know, everybody that I love and care about, and whose opinion, matters to me really, it plays guitar and loves Van Halen,
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're 13 or 14, when you first heard Eruption for the first time, and you know, and I remember the three guys when I heard it in the backfield on a tape deck, and it was like we were part of the secret gang, guys, you know, because, you know, a lot of people, you know, weren't listening to Van Halen, back when I was at high school. You know, it was still underground and wasn't basically until 1984 came out when normies, you know what I say, you know what I mean by normies, were listening to Van Halen, and it was like, oh, okay. It was like it kind of pissed me off a little bit, you know, back then.
Yeah, it's like your secret got out. Yeah.
Get away. You know, how can you like Duran Duran 1 minute and say you like Van Halen the next? You know,
I love both bands, man.
I know, but you know, it was that kind of rivalry that we had. You know what I mean? It was like here in New Zealand. I don't know if you guys did it in the States, but we would write names of bands on the back of our school bags, you know. So you had Van Halen, okay, of course, you know, Van Halen or Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin or whatever, and it was like, you know, it was like your gang patch, Jim.
Oh yeah, man, that was your group, yeah. Oh, I know. I think I might have told this story before, right? I can't remember. I went to Greece in 1985. I was born in Greece, and I went back in 1985 to vacation, see my grandmother, and you know, I was hanging out with these kids that I kind of knew, and I was, you know, way into music, and they're like, "Hey, what kind of music you into?" I'm like, "Oh man, I love Van Halen." They didn't even know. I was like, "These guys never heard of Van Halen?" It's like we never heard of, I don't know, Jesus. You know what I mean? Crazy. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of music were they into in Greece back then?
Don't even. They probably listen to their own weird Greek music, man.
I'm trying to think of some like famous Greek person. I can't think of any right now.
No.
Demetri Sauce.
Nana
Muscuri.
Nana Muscuri. My mom had some of her CDs.
No, when I went to Australia in 1990, my cousins. Shout out to my cousins if anybody's watching, man. My cousins were so cool. They were into Van Halen. They were really into Rush. I loved Rush. Yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool. Good times.
My cousins brought me a Pet Shop Boys album. I was just like, what is this crap?
Should I tell you something?
They were from Ireland. And they're like, what is this crap? You know?
That's right.
A guy called Neil Tennant, Western Girls, you know, like it was like radio music back then and stuff like that. But you know, so I'm going to make an admission here. It's okay to like stuff when it's on the radio, when it's pop music back in the day on the radio, but you know, owning the album, nah.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't have any of those albums. Like I have Apple Music, so I'm like, all right, I'll listen to it on, you know, whatever.
Yeah, we all have our guilty pleasures in our little song list there. We all have those songs, you know, definitely.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. I don't make any, you know, I'll own any music that I like, man. I mean, like I'll own it. You know what I mean? I don't make any excuses for, you know, what I like, you know.
That's why I know you're probably not a Foo Fighters fan, Jimmy. I don't think you are, right? You know? Yeah. But I love Dave Grohl's attitude though, because
I love Grohl. I love Grohl as a person. The music to me, I don't know. This is just me. I don't get how they're, you know, like playing stadiums and stuff. That's just me. But I have to say, Grohl with this whole Taylor Hawkins thing. I mean, I said he was so wonderful on stage. Okay.
Yeah.
Like talking to the crowd and like introducing people. And like one day, you know, he's playing like Panama on bass with Wolfgang. The next one, he's playing drums. The next one, I don't know, he's playing keyboards. Next one, he's playing the fucking xylophone. You know, amazing. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because do you guys want to talk about the second concert and some of your thoughts on what Wolfie contributed?
Definitely.
Yeah. I loved it. Okay. And, you know, I love that he did Panama. Now, like some people are like, hey, man, he said he was never going to play Panama. Come on. It's a completely different thing. Like what he meant was he's not going to play Panama for you with his band. And I wouldn't want to go see, you know, Wolfgang and have him play Van Halen because, I mean, like he wasn't, that's like going to see REO Speedwagon and wanting them to play Van Halen. I mean, his last name is Van Halen, but he didn't have anything to do with those songs like Panama and like, you know, And like he wasn't a singer or anything like that. So it's like going to see anybody and asking them to do Panama, right? Now,
Right.
that being said, the kid absolutely killed it. And if there's, we talked about this before, if there's ever going to be a some kind of tribute show, which doesn't look like there is. I mean, the kid should play the guitar. Even Satriani, I think I
Yeah,
saw.
he did say that. You're right.
You
He
know,
did, yeah.
I mean, incredible. He played some Panama, and I think he did Hot for Teacher again, right?
Yeah.
The second time around.
I'll be honest with you. I thought I'm glad he did it, for whatever reasons, for the people in LA and stuff like that. But the second one, I didn't get any kind of buzz off it. After that first one, when I was like, "Oh my
Oh
god!"
yeah,
When Suma's
yeah,
texting me, he's like, "Oh my god, he's
yeah,
playing Hot for Teacher," and I was like,
yeah.
"What?" I just didn't expect that at all. It was like, yeah, I hadn't had that kind of rush since
Oh
the
no,
Van
that
Halen
was
album or
yeah.
something like that. You know
No,
what I
you're
mean?
right. That was
So,
just like, I mean,
it
you
was
and I, we talked about that
we were
before.
all
Where
texting, like, right, you and me and
yeah,
Les were like texting each other. It was like it was incredible. It was something Van Halen related in
yeah,
the in the pop culture at the moment right now. And but I didn't get that feeling at the second show at all. It was kind of like, nah, it's been done, or it's like,
yeah.
to me,
It's like okay, well, yeah, we know the kid can do it.
right. And I mean the whole
Do you
show.
think it has something to do with it, like not being televised, like they did with the first show?
Yeah, they did well. I think maybe Grohl got it. He's like, well, the cat's out of the bag with the first one. Been there, done that. Got the T-shirt and hat. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
so we're
yeah, yeah.
just
Bought the T-shirt. Yeah, got the hat.
and hat. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
So I think he thought about that maybe, and it's just like, we're not going to stream it. We're just going to do
yeah,
it for the people that are there in LA because that's where they all live. The
yeah,
hometown and stuff like that. So, but yeah, but I mean, the first one, it was just that whole wow, this is incredible, and I'm sure there'll be a DVD or something released of it. You know what I mean? On
yeah.
review or something like that. But
That'd be good.
yeah, definitely. But you know, I thought it was cool, but I thought the first time around was cooler with
Yeah, no, the first
On
time.
Fire and Harvard
Was
Teacher.
fun.
Yeah,
I was like, he's doing On Fire.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
just unbelievable.
yeah. Because
Like like you could have done, You Really Got Me or something, but On
yeah,
Fire.
we all knew he was going to be there, but we didn't. I thought he was going to play drums maybe with the Foo Fighters on a
Yeah,
song or something like that.
yeah,
I did not, and I didn't think he'd play any of his own songs. I thought he was going to play the drums on something. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That we were just like blown away that he did that.
yeah.
Well, there's a
Van
couple.
Halen stuff. So that was cool. And you know what? And I'm glad he did that, and I'm glad he's done. And now I hope he doesn't ever play Van Halen music again. I'm one of those people. I
I don't get the
You're wrong.
demand
Yeah, just
to
keep
see
playing
him,
his own
the
music.
wanting to see him do Van Halen. I mean, he wasn't, he's not associated with that music. Like maybe if he did, like, I could, maybe if he did something off of a different kind of Truth or something. I don't know, but it's like put in anybody and ask them to do Van Halen. It's the
Yeah.
same.
No,
You
Well,
know?
there's a couple of things that have happened during the week, and we were fortunate on the channel to have Chris Gill with us, guys, on our annual tribute show, and he mentioned a couple of things, and we can talk about that, how he's tight with Bruck and Wolfgang, and how
Yeah.
that looks like a good thing moving forward for us, and we can talk about what we think that might mean. But he did mention, though, that he heard some of the new music that Wolfie's working on, and he said that we're going to be surprised. From what he heard, it sounds really, really, really great. So that got everybody, when he was on the show, guys, really, really interested. So Jim and John, I suppose that's always going to be something for us to look forward to. And I think also Wolfie's mentioned some stuff on his social media account that he's, hard at work on this album. So it can't be far away, guys.
well, I think my only hope is that he keeps progressing. I hope I know we're just talking about Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, and the Foo Fighters music from the first album is very eclectic. Dave Grohl wrote all kinds of different songs, you know what I mean? And and I hope that Wolfgang continues to do that, you know what I mean? Like on, Think It Over on this first album was a very pop song. I like how he just mixed it up like that. And my point about Dave Grohl before was that he's not a music snob. He said that. He goes, I'm not a music snob. That's why he was playing with Rick Springfield, you know what I mean? And that Sound City thing. It was like, it was cool because it's just like, no, I'm not too cool for you, too cool for you. You know what I mean? Like that. He never comes across as that. And for him to jam with Rick Springfield and, stuff like that, I thought that was just kind of cool. And I just like how eclectic he is and about doing pop songs, rock songs. He just mixes it up. And I hope Wolfgang, his album is like a complete like palette of different tones and different songs and, different kinds of music, whatever, just stuff. I hope he continues in that vein on his second album. And, I definitely don't want to hear the first album.
Hey guys.
Hey, Alan.
That's my buddies right there. It's great to see y'all.
That's right, man. Good to have you on here, man.
Yeah, I've got just a split second. My son is playing in the bathtub and my daughter's eating dinner, so I've got a few seconds. My wife's out shopping.
Yeah, you got a window there.
Yeah.
Awesome,
yeah, my wife's out shopping with my mother-in-law. And
no problem, Ellen. You're always welcome to jump on. So we're going to be here for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But we asked you if you wanted to come on the tribute show a couple of weeks ago, and you said that you couldn't for a lot of reasons. But you want to say anything about your thoughts on EVH, and while you got a bit of time, to share with us?
Oh, sure. Well, I just had a lot of stuff going on, during the actual day, but yeah, I mean, it's just an ongoing thing with us. We are anniversaries and things like that for this are not really full of much meaning for us because it's a daily thing. I mean, we live and breathe the music all the time, and so it's just kind of a good excuse for people to get together, I suppose. But, it's just, hey, let's keep the train running and keep studying and learning from the man. I've been knee deep in Tone Chaser for a while. I've got the kids and my wife and my life to deal with, so it's been hard for me to grab a few minutes here and there, but I've made it about halfway through the book. Been talking with Steven a bit, and he's given me some cool things. I'll be able to talk about it in a little bit. So that's kind of something that I'll definitely jump in with you guys and share with you guys some of the stuff that he's given me and that we've been talking about. So that's 100%. Been a lot of fun. Tone Chaser is so good, and we all were expecting it to be, really good, and it hasn't disappointed. It's definitely a great thing to add to the canon, and Steven is such a unusual writer with his own voice, and I really love, taking my time and savoring every word of it. It's it's great. There's a lot of people are saying, oh, there's no new information. I'm like, yeah, there is new information in there. If you really, really look, there's some nuggets in there that are to be had, or at least there's like different viewpoints of situations that we're aware of. There's some things that we haven't heard, like, I mean, I'm not going to go into specifics, but anyway, that's just been a lot of fun. I've been, what else have I been doing? What EVH wise? Well, some of you guys know I went to, I drove to Austin to see our pal Caleb play with Nerd Halen in Austin, Texas. It's about a, what is it? 2-3 hour drive. So me and a buddy went up and visited Kevin Dodds in Austin, and he and my friend, and we just had a great night. And I was really impressed with with Caleb. And the thing about Caleb, that I hope people get, and he's just kind of he came up with such a fresh take on how to do the stuff. It's it's not what Jim would do or what I would do, or anybody else, where we're just, Jim and myself, we're really about like, hey, let's really try to nail that down and get that part right and everything, and Caleb is just about like keeping the fun alive and this kind of hilarious nerd concept going. And, the band is so good. And anyway, yada, yada, yada. I can talk. We had a great time at the show. It was wonderful to see Caleb in the flesh. And give him some hugs. He's been a real good friend for quite a while. And I just love the guy. He's a heart of gold dude. I love him. So, yeah, that's been my little Van Halen experience lately. But again, it's a day-to-day thing that we all just immerse ourselves in gladly. Yeah.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned Rosen's book because we're going to get Jim to jump in here because he's halfway through it and without giving too much away. But I think the key thing, though, that we need to understand, though, Alan and guys, is that, while there may not be on the surface, obviously, a lot of information in regards to maybe information on Eddie, the important thing is that you've got a book, it's together, it's in, 600 pages, and it's by a guy that knew Eddie. And you mentioned it before, Jim, in the green room. They used to sit at a kitchen table and do interviews together at a kitchen table, bro. So you can't discount what that means.
Now, this is the book that I've been waiting for the most because it's like we were saying. It's like here's this guy who like knew Eddie and they were friends. I mean, like they were really friends,
Sure.
And has like I don't know how to quite say this, but it's like I'm reading the book and it's almost like it's almost like he was in love with Eddie, and I don't mean like in a weird, but he loved Eddie. You know what I mean? Like he in that there's a couple of sections there where he talks about how he can't believe how like this happened to him and like how they became friends. He can't remember how they went from being like interviewer and subject to just Eddie coming over to his house. He doesn't remember how that happened. And it was and he kind of explains it as being an organic thing and like how like I don't know how it became friends, but these two guys are even Andrew like on the screen. It just kind of happened. And you're just you people that you've known for 40 years. You're like, how do we even meet? Like, when was the first time we even talked? You can't remember. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. And I'm really enjoying this book because of like it's not like overly technical. It's not like a guy he goes into. Although trust me, I love that stuff too. It's just like he kind of like loved Eddie, and tells you the story of and like what they did together and like how Eddie was like. And I was telling Andrew and John in the green room that like like the first this isn't giving anything away, but in like the first 2 pages he talks about how like Eddie asked him, "Hey man, you got anything to eat?" He's like, "Yeah, I got some potato chips." He's like, "Oh, can I have some?" I mean, it's just so human, man. What a great line. You're just like hanging out with Eddie eating potato chips. So that's kind of like what I want to see. I want to see like the human element of like how Eddie was today. You know what I mean? Like how he was while he wasn't on tour. So
Right.
yeah, so I when this book came, I was like, I was so psyched. I'm working my way through it. But I think this is the one that I was waiting for, at least for me, for the most.
Yeah, I agree with that totally, Jim. And John, I'm sure so Rosen is sort of we always knew that he was the guy that had the most in-depth interviews. I mean, there's the other guys that were fantastic, and to Steven's credit, he calls them out. The Joss Obrecht interviews and the Brad and Chris interviews are super, super, super important. And but Steven was that guy. I think maybe a bit of a deeper level of friendship. I don't know what it was, but Steven was able to get into that next level.
That's what I mean. Yep.
Than the other guys. And they all help to paint a more complete picture. And so yeah, totally agree with that. And John, I haven't really talked to you about that. Can you give me your little 2 cents for the most part?
I agree with you. I always like books that like Jim said, that you kind of get to. We know Eddie Van Halen, the guitar player, the superstar, and all like that. But I just want to see him what he's like. You know what I mean? It's just like observe kind of, and books like this are you're observing just like just the way he acted and things. And at that time, it was just like it was early on in his in his fame, really. You know what I mean? It wasn't even near the peak. You know what I mean of his fame yet. It was very early on. So anything like that, it helps you form a complete picture of someone. You know what I mean? It's the same with, like, I read Valerie Bertinelli's book about her, enough already. And really, because of those Eddie parts, I mean, that's the parts that we all, I think, were just, him coming in and eating the spinach dip and stuff like that. It's just like, just a normal day, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's like that kind of stuff is important, you know what I mean? Because it does help you form a better picture. And Steve Rosen, I mean, I remember 1985. I still remember that, interview where Eddie's grabbing the tuna sandwich and a can of beer and meeting them, so they could fly to NAMM in New Orleans. You know what I mean? And I mean, I think I must have read that article like 10 times, just like word for word. You know what I mean? Just it was just like fascinating to me. It's like a tuna sandwich at 6 a.m. He's like, Rosen showed up at his house and picked him up, and they were late to get to the airport and everything like that. It's just like, so all that kind of stuff is just great. But I mean, obviously Rosen is very in-depth because he had so much access early on in Eddie's career. So it's just, it's kind of cool because it's like he passed the baton off to Brad and Chris in the later part, but he's got that early part covered really, really well. And I think it was a little more challenging for Brad and Chris because by the time they got in there, he was already a superstar.
Yeah.
I think he was a little more difficult to, get maybe, closer, into where, you know what I mean? Because he was at that point, it was just like, probably a little bit of a wall between stuff like that. So I think they had a more challenging, time. But with Rosen, it was free flying and, and all his interviews and stuff like that, which is great because that's kind of stuff that the hardcore fans definitely want to see.
I've got a question for you three guys and obviously everyone in the chat. So again, we were lucky enough to have Chris Skill on the tribute show that we did, and he, Alan, he mentioned you a few times in the show. So, he gave us a hint. He said that he had touched base with Matt and he had touched base with EVH, and we were talking about this book here, Lewisham's biography, part 1 on the Beatles, and it's 900 pages. And he released this in 2012, and volume 2 hasn't been released. And this is a definitive Beatles biography. It tells you exactly how much sausages Paul McCartney bought when he went down to the shop in 1959. So Chris hinted to us that he could be the guy out doing this kind of biography. So we've got to be... Well, yeah, he's going to obviously, I think, probably get access to a lot of information. Well, I'm just assuming, because if you're going to write this kind of biography, you have to be able to go back into the archives to get all this kind of stuff. So it looks like we might be getting a definitive...
I would agree that that's a possibility, and if there was a guy that was going to do it, it might be Chris. But what I think, and what Chris and I have discussed, and he's discussed with other people, I think that maybe this is for like me and Jim and John and some of the players out there. I think Chris has got a really good shot at potentially doing a really good Jimmy Page the Anthology type of book. So I think that's really what Chris is kind of going to be able to hone in on, because he's the guy that has had the most access to the guitars, period.
So a book like this that's going to have the photographs and it's going to have timelines and bits and pieces and gear, and so he's going to be able to talk about all this, because he did that with the Clapton book, didn't he? With the Clapton 6-string.
Yeah. So I know that is probably a more, that kind of makes a little bit more sense. And I do know that he's, like he had asked, Matt some questions, and, he's got that kind of relationship with them where I think he could really make that into something really special, an extension of what he did with the Guitar Aficionado article.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Chris is, his whole, point I think with Eddie is he was a fan from the very beginning. He grew up in San Diego. I mean, he was in tune right away with that band, and he wants to just protect Ed's legacy, promote Ed's legacy, and I don't think that I can think of a better person
Correct.
to do that. He's got great writing skills.
Yep.
He's like Dateline, in his investigations as far as like, I mean, look at the Frankenstein guitar, how many things that, Chris and other people, Alan, everybody that he's met on here, and I mean the information that they've put together, it's just incredible with that guitar, and he's like that with not just the Frankenstein, with other guitars and things like that too. I just think he's a huge asset to, and who knows what'll happen with any books or whoever down the road, but I just think that, I mean, I would hope that Bruck and Wolfgang know that he's a valuable asset and a good guy, and one of the good guys that's there not to damage Ed's legacy or hyper the bad things and the negatives when focus on that. He only wants to focus on the positive things and the great things that this guy did, and to let people know how great he is. Now it's like, and I think we need more of that, because a lot of people piss me off, like Ken Burns, who's this great, documentarian here, and he took a shot at Eddie, and now I hate this guy now because of that, because
what happened?
I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, you got to Google it, and he kind of brushed off Eddie like he was inconsequential, basically. When he did that, I think he did a country music, series recently.
Yes.
And he was asked about it. You'll have to Google it. I'll pull it up if we ever do one of these shows again, Andrew.
Okay.
I'll have it ready. But after that, he's like persona non
grata. He's dead to Conks.
He's dead to me now. It's just like,
man.
And I always enjoyed his documentaries, but after that, I was like, he just doesn't get it. You know what I mean?
Lost all credibility.
And he's the reason we need Chris Gill.
Well, my 2 cents on Chris, and I've shared this with him before. Like, I really kind of feel like the thing with Chris and with us is that we don't, we've read all the books, we've made our own decisions, we've been able to get a pretty good picture of the not so pleasant parts of him. But Chris is just like, hey, the music, the instruments, how did we record this? What was going through, how was this overdubbed?
The importance,
that's the stuff that is the fun and important stuff for us. And really, ultimately in the end, that's really kind of Eddie's real legacy. And that's what he would want his legacy to be. It's period about the music. It's not his smile. It's really not the striped guitars and stuff. It's really about like, hey, what did that sound like?
And the reason why, Al, is because both these guys were and are guitar players. Rosen was a guitar player, and so was Chris Gill, musicians. So and we've
and
said
Brad,
this many times.
And Joss Obrecht is a good player. See, those guys, could relate to him on that level. But I'm thinking, like, if there was going to be a Lewison type of book, that to me might be more the wheelhouse of Greg. In my opinion. I mean, I think if somebody's going to really do that type of comprehensive biography, or, to kind of extend past where Van Halen Rising left off and kind of take it the other. I mean, I think, in my opinion, it would really be Greg doing that, and Chris would be the guy that would be handling, like the musical stuff. That's how I read it, at least.
Do you think that this might be changing the subject a little bit, but we got, we're getting books and stuff. Very cool. But do you think like one of these guys can like maybe go to, I don't know, Wolfgang or Matt Brock or somebody, even, I don't know, Alex, and say, hey, can you release some, I don't know, something out of the vault? Like, I don't know, a video or two or something.
Please.
We need because like Conks was saying in the green room, man, we're all getting old, and this is the this is the generation that appreciates that the most, And but then I keep hearing that these guys, they don't, the Van Halen brothers, they don't really look back, they look forward, or they used to look forward, and it's not really in their DNA to like release stuff that happened in the past, but that's what people want.
I think that there's a certain segment of people that want that. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm with Wolfgang, and Wolf basically says like, hey, that stuff's unreleased for a reason. And it's really a lot of stuff of like Eddie noodling and coming up with riffs, which would be fun for us to listen to, but is it that great that it's going to warrant a release? Like, there are some things that are tantalizing that exist out there that, like, Brian Kehoe gave us the previews of, like, the room mic thing of Eruption, and as he mentioned how Eddie had overdubbed the tapping intro to Hot for Teacher with the bass, or with probably a 6-string bass, for that. That's something that we know that exists, and that's something that'd be fun to hear. But I don't know that there's really, I just don't think that there's really material that's going to be that satisfactory to release. And that's what Wolfgang's perspective of it is. And as such, I don't think that they're ever going to bother wanting to release, the unreleased stuff, the stuff in the vault. That's the way I'm perceiving what's going on. And I'm different than a lot of people. I don't want a tribute concert. I don't really care about having the vault stuff released. For me, it'd be nice if they're in, and Brian Kehoe basically said that from what he saw, there really wasn't a lot of actual unreleased alternate takes and all that kind of stuff, so
Al, there's one album worth of material from the Balance album that's
well,
apparently
as you know, if it happened after 1989, it didn't happen for me.
yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, that's a whole show on its own. But we're not but there's a whole Balance album there, and that, at least another 12 songs, Jim, apparently that they were going to have on Balance. So yeah,
I brought my thing up only because I listened to Eddie Trunk, and he says that, I mean, he's got no reason to lie, that he went, that somebody contacted, maybe it was I forget the full story, but he was in the studio, and there was a compilation for Van Halen 1 ready to go, right? And it had like alternate takes of certain songs, and it was just ready to go, and like it obviously hasn't been released, so somebody's putting the kibosh on it. So release something like that, like a Van Halen 1 super deluxe thing.
Well, if you follow, I mean, I don't think that Eddie has more information than Brian did when he was going through all of the available stuff. And according to Brian, there's really nothing like that there. That there's not full alternate takes. Like the one thing that he was probably hoping to find, and that Eddie was trying to get him to find, was to get the original like master of the demo sessions. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that would be great. But I think Eddie, I'm not saying Eddie's lying. I just think Eddie maybe like has built that up to be more than what it really is. He may have heard about, what Brian did and what has been heard, and kind of amalgamated that into thinking, oh, there's all these alternate takes. And really, I put trust into Brian more than I do to Eddie Trunk.
Okay, let's just throw this perspective then in the mix. So we've got OU812, and all Van Halen fans recognise that needs a remaster. So that's fantastic. So remaster 89,
remix,
and we've also mentioned this also on the show before too, haven't we, Jim and John? That 89 Tokyo Dome concert, which is on the internet, which is fantastic. Do a polished version of that, have that available for a digital download or a DVD or Blu-ray with that package. It's just a license to print money, Al.
Well, again, this is a different time. This is not the market where you're going to make any money on this per se. The music business is different. There's not a profit motive in any of that stuff. Yes, we will buy that stuff, of course. That's also that particular show is probably in the hands of the Japanese, network or whatever that recorded that. But yeah, I don't see that as when it comes to Van Halen or them releasing anything, profit motive just isn't the thing. The only thing that they could make money on would be like a tribute tour. And God, I hope that doesn't happen. But I mean, if
I agree.
but that's where the money is in music these days, is doing live shows. You guys, we know that. Now back in the day, in '89, or as DVDs started coming into the market, there was a profit motive before the internet killed the music business and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, just another perspective on that. So.
I'm gonna differ with Alan a bit there. I agree with you 100%. I don't want any tribute tour. I don't want any tribute concert. I could care less about that. But I do want a box set of, I don't care what's on it. I want to hear Eddie playing the piano. I just want to see him. Just for the hardcore fan, I want to see him playing the cello. I don't care. I'll sit and be fascinated with an hour's worth of just him noodling around on the piano, playing the cello. Any little bits and pieces of music, and they did listen. They were working with Danny Korchmar, they were working with Patrick Leonard for a while, and the Sharon era. All these guys are in there. Patrick Leonard is a genius. I would love to hear some of the stuff that they were doing in that era, even if it's just instrumental. Something.
Like Mike Post is a great composer and artist and all that kind of stuff. But what he did with Eddie, I'm like, I could care less, But the other thing is that I would kind of say that, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from, but like, say for instance, that's one fun thing in Rosen's book. Could Eddie play cello? Not really. He sucked at it. He didn't know what he was doing. Not as a spoiler if anybody hasn't gotten there yet, but there is a bit about the cello thing, So like, yeah, Eddie posed with a cello, but could he play it? I mean, there's not any reliable witness that I've ever come up with that actually says he could play it. And I think he was pretty lost on that, like he was lost on a lot of other things, but I mean, I get it. I get sort of the hardcore fans want to hear everything that exists.
I mean, I just don't think like the piano. The guy was, classically trained pianist as a kid.
But again, he wasn't. He was not classically trained. He was classically faking it. So he really didn't know what he was doing. He was just pretending like he could read music, and he couldn't read music. So I mean, it's like he didn't know what he was doing. So it's like, he's good, and he was coming up with great stuff. Obviously, hear about it later. Unchained. These things that he came up with on the piano and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. But I always have to reel back when somebody says classically trained pianist.
Okay, well, but he was classically trained in the fact that he did have lessons and everything. If he cheated and played by ear, we know Alex can sight read music. Alex can open up a piece of Beethoven or Bach,
but not Eddie,
and play it. But not Eddie.
Yeah.
But Eddie was good enough to win some competitions as a kid. So obviously he could hear by faking it, right? Whatever. But I want to hear him fake the piano for an hour. I don't necessarily need to hear him play Mozart or Bach. Just play Eddie Van Halen and just some jamming, like, because that's how this stuff was created. Him and Alex were just jamming, basically, and that's true. And hone it down. They would cut little pieces off of this and that, and just like that song AFU. It's like Alex had that drum, the beginning, the intro at the beginning, and it's like, hey, we could use that for this. You know what I mean? Just I want to see.
Well, that was also like, and that's another thing about the unreleased stuff and the jams and the riffs and how he comes up with the music. That stuff is, the ultimately the Van Halen thing, the musically, it's Ted and Don essentially editing all of this stuff and funneling it into something that makes sense. I mean, Eddie did have, he understood parts and, but I mean, I think they were so critical to all that they could take a soup of these endless jams and pick out the gems and figure out what part should go where. And that was ultimately, I think, what they brought to what Eddie did. Absolutely. That a lot of people don't really look at it that way. A lot of people just think, oh, Eddie came up with all of this out of whole cloth. And, this was like this from start to finish. He came up with all the parts, but was he able to put it all together in that way? I think, and I think that's where he kind of ended up losing his way, was that he didn't have somebody like that could do that. Well, that really knew him.
Van Halen 3 is evidence of that, because it was very indulgent and he had nobody to say no to. No, yes, surrounded by yes. Mike Post was a yes man. He wasn't a producer, he was a yes man, and Ed did what he wanted to do there.
Right. So I would say that happened from 1990 until the end of his career. because when Ted and Don left, it was over. I mean, that's the thing. The people that really knew what to do with Ed's music were gone. And then people like Andy Johns and all these other people that were really, I just don't think that they had what Ted and Don had. And I think Eddie was sad about that, especially Don. I think Eddie was like heartbroken that Don was not doing it anymore.
I would agree with that. But you know what? Maybe Don will go through some tapes and look and say, hey, get Ted and Don in there and listen to some stuff.
Yeah.
In there. Go through
no, Holly, that's not true. He can't read music. It didn't take him long. No, I mean, the thing is like if you look and read and you follow what Eddie did when he played live, it's clear that he had no knowledge of the fretboard in terms of where to play, what to do. He was lost on anything other than Van Halen music. Lost. He could not. I mean, even like there were blues jams where he was even lost. It was more like, you got to get perspective on this and realize where he sits. I mean, he is not in the category of Steve Vai or Joe Satriani or Steve Lukather, especially, who has like massive theory chops and knows what to do and improvise in all kinds of situations. And just if you think that, then just go back and watch all the jams where he's literally lost on every single one of them. I don't think anybody can point to a jam situation where Eddie actually did something that made sense. I mean, the Les Paul tribute was kind of close because that was more or less a jam on Hot for Teacher,
But the history of rock and roll, though, Al, is full of people that can't necessarily follow other people. So what they do is they form their own band and do their own music.
Right, and that's what Eddie did. Yeah, that's true. But that's what I'm saying. It's good to have perspective as far as like his music theory knowledge, because it's just pretty much non-existent.
Yeah. From what I know, though, I mean, as far as Ed, Ed didn't read music. He couldn't sight read music. He could sit down and figure out. He could sit down and look like we all can. We can sit there. I can go on a piano. I played in the jazz ensemble in college, and I would get down on the piano and I would just sit there and work it out and figure it out, stuff like that. So, I mean, he had an understanding of it. He just couldn't open it up like Alex could and just sight read it.
Well, I would say that he didn't really even have that, because I don't think he knew how many sharps and flats were in each key. And if you don't know that, it doesn't do any good for you to know Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge and Face. So you can pick out the notes on the staff, but if you don't know what, he knew, and it bears it out in the Rosen book, because he even says this himself, and Eddie copped to it an awful lot. He kind of has an idea of whether he's playing in major or minor, but beyond that, he is lost. And, again, he doesn't know, I don't think he really has much knowledge about, the 1-4-5 and the Roman numeral system and all that kind of stuff, Yeah, but see, Eddie actually said these things contradictorily. So sometimes he would say he knew music theory, and then other times, in fact, most of the time he said he didn't. So, I take it with a grain of salt on those 2 or 3 occasions where he may have said, I know theory, or I had to do this or that. And I would take more stock in the 20 times where he said he didn't, read music. And then again, when I'm sitting down and I'm transcribing Eddie's music, it's like, it's clear that his music is not like a transcribable thing. It's not a sensical thing, and Jim and you guys know this, because it's just, he's playing patterns and he's playing Eric Clapton licks. That's about it. Musically speaking, there's not he's not in a mode. He's not following, chord progressions per se. He's not thinking of intervals when he's playing. So I mean, those are all critical things that somebody that has, even like a mid-level knowledge of music theory would go to. And if he had that kind of knowledge, he wouldn't be lost in every single jam that he's been a part of. And, and even the Rosen book is funny, because you get to see those situations where it's like, ouch, Eddie made a big stink on stage and he didn't know what he was doing, and everybody else wiped the floor with him. And, and it's not about being drunk or high. It's about like, hey, he wasn't there. He wasn't in the realm of Lukather. He wasn't in the realm of Branford Marsalis, as he quoted even, so I mean, it just seems to be that there's not any evidence that he knew what he was doing music theory wise that I can find. I'm open to there being some kind of proof, but I've never seen it.
Yet he had some kind of it factor that
Yep.
100%.
That nobody else has. That
100%.
That Steve Vai will never have. That Yngwie Malmsteen will never have. That Steve Lukather will never have. I mean,
100% agree with that. Absolutely. I think we all totally
The
agree
cool
with that.
factor. The
Oh,
cool
yeah.
factor.
It's more than that. It's just something that I don't even know if you can put your finger on it, but nobody has been quite like him. And I mean, it's just like we're addicted to this, like moths to flames, because whatever it was that he had, it's just like other people just don't have it. You know what I mean? And maybe it can't be explained, because Alan, you laid it out there. It's true, because I remember at that jam with who was it? Steve Morse and Albert Lee. That's another time that it was just like he was just, I think he liked to be prepared and do his own, he in where that was his comfort zone,
Right.
stuff like that.
Like Stompin' 8H, which was his music that he did on the Saturday Night Live appearance, being a case in point. He sounded wonderful there, because guess what? He's playing Van Halen music, period.
Right.
You know, and then on the Letterman appearance, which I found was funny in the Rosen. I don't want to destroy I don't want to ruin everything from the Rosen book, but he mentioned that Ed, thought he sounded like crap on the Letterman appearance, on the second Letterman appearance where he got to play more with the band and everything. And like, his sound was godlike, and that's one of the main tones that I know Jim feels the same way. That tone on Letterman was amazing. And I thought he played excellent, because he was playing all these covers that he already knew and had played in, like the Cream covers, obviously, but the bits of Van Halen too. That's where he was great and comfortable and did so well.
I think in the background you can see the Magic Marshall too.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And the strip cabinet is back there. I mean, and that's really at that stage, and I think John and I have talked about this, and I know I've talked about this with you, Jim. That tone is so magical. It's the 5150 guitar and the Magic Marshall into the strip cabinet. And there were, they also had the delay rack and stuff like that was at Farm Aid. There's a little bit of delay on the Letterman show. There's delay, and there's the Bradshaw rack. The travel Bradshaw rack was at SNL and all that kind of stuff. But the core tone there is just oof.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
Unbelievable. But that's an example of where he sounded so good, was on the stuff that he was familiar with, and that's where like the it factor would come through, his comfort, and it's like. But anyway. That's my soapbox about the music theory. I once I get going on that, I'm like, I'll go on that, man. And it's not to lessen what he did at all. I mean, sometimes people will take that the wrong way when I'm just trying to be real and down to earth about what his actual playing was, where it came from and what it is. I mean, like I always say, like the ending solo of Ice Cream Man is the guy is literally following the dots on the fingerboard. There's no kind of like more visual pattern oriented thing that you can do. It's like 5, 7, 9, all the dots all the way down the neck, But that what makes it different than that is like how he chose to use, whether he used an upstroke or a downstroke, or whether he used a silent hammer-on, or whether he used hammer-ons and pull-offs, or combinations thereof, and like his great vibrato, his sense of bending on pitches, and all that kind of beautiful stuff is to me what ended up being magical about him, and is what's magical about a lot of great guitar players, classic rock guitar players. That's where it all sort of resides.
No doubt. Andrew, you're back, man. When you were gone, there was a little burger on your video there. Made me hungry.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I must change that, but that's just me being a little bit funny.
No, it's funny, man. It's good.
Jeez. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. So, Jim, John, have you heard anything? I really wish I could go, but what's going on with EVH Con? Do we know anything?
Yeah. It's happening. It's November 6th. It's a Sunday. And it's funny because it's usually around that time almost every year, because I have some pictures from last year, and it was like within the day of like, November 6th or something like that. Ugh. So it's on. We're going. I think the usual suspects will be there. Hopefully, more people too. And it's always, if you guys are in the area, if you want to fly in, it's always a great time. I mean, we go down there where it's at Greenwich Music there in Riverside, Connecticut, which is really kind of Greenwich anyway. And
Yeah, it's right off 95. You can't miss. It's the easiest place to get to.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
95.
yeah, and right, yeah, it's like almost directly off 95. And usually it starts from like at like noon. We usually go there a little bit earlier, like 11 o'clock, and usually we're like rolls until like 5, 6 o'clock at night or whatever, and then everybody kind of like sometimes we go out get something to eat, sometimes everybody goes their own way. It's a great time. It's a great hang.
It is. And you get to talk, a lot of people that you interface with throughout the year. They show up and are there.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam Reaver's there and setting up guitars and stuff in the back room, and Chris Gill's going to be there this year. Chris is coming.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You got other legends like Craig Stofko and Pete Caruch and Rob Johnson and all those guys.
Yeah, and everybody brings a guitar. Steve Nowicki brings his, from Howard Stern. He comes, he brings his, he does incredible relic stuff on his 1984 and his 5150. He's a lunatic. He's up there with the Hubbards and the kids and stuff like that. He's it's always a great time. There's tons of cool guitars, tons of cool equipment there. It's just I
dream of wearing a very, very long trench coat and just leaving with Rob Steinberger.
There you go. There you go. And his little mini guitar too. That thing is
little guitar. Hey, that's an exciting thing, guys. Like whenever Petulat is finished with that, that's going to be really special.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm excited about that. The guy that made that guitar, and it's going to be for sale, and whatever. I kind of have a vague idea of how much it's going to be, but it's well worth it. And that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's even cool. Available.
That's cool.
It is cool, but
that's what you kind of segued a little bit there, Alan, where I was talking with some buddies of mine, like we all know, Conks, and I think maybe Alan too knows this guy, Les Paul Gibson, and we were talking about how when I was a kid, 10, 11, 12, and like all I wanted was a Van Halen guitar. You know what I mean? I mean, like a striped guitar, right? Like Eddie's. And like, I'm pretty much sure that I probably would have murdered my parents for one. You know what I mean? But now these days, man, it's such a great time to be alive if you want stuff. You got people like, Chris Locke making by Donnie Ward. You got, great, guys that paint guitar like, Nick. and Craig Stofko and all these other guys. And you can get parts and you can basically make any one of these replicas you want. Like if you told me that like when I was 13 or 14, I never would have believed it.
You don't have to wait till you're 50 to get there.
Yeah.
To arrive at this, when you turn 50, we're finally.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
If you'd have told me 10 years ago that there was going to be a resource like period correct parts,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or people like Jim Francis and people that are the 3D modeling and actually tooling and making exact replicas of stuff that was pretty much unobtainium for everybody. That I never would have believed you even a few years ago.
We got to get Jerry Leica at the EVH Con.
My man Jerry would be great to have there, man.
Unbelievable, the stuff that he does too.
Jerry made me an Unchained guitar, and I wish I still had it. But Jerry, like I said in the beginning, Jerry was one of the very first people I was talking to, via like right at the beginning of the internet, via like AOL Messenger. Remember that, Jerry? AOL Messenger? I know you do. And it was, and then I kind of like one of the first, I was telling this before, one of the first things I looked up when I finally connected. I remember like reading Guitar World and they were talking about the internet. I'm like, what the hell? What do you do there? It's kind of like today with the metaverse. I'm like, what's the metaverse?
Yep.
You know what that is. So I got on. I got on, and the first thing I typed in was Van Halen, and like this, I think that's when I saw the Van Halen mailing list.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I got to sign on to this, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great, it's a great, like Neil Daly. Yeah, that's right, Adam.
Neil, that's right. Neil needs to get the EVH Con.
I don't need to leave anybody out, but yeah, great.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you get it. I mean, Jerry is the godfather of it all. And I think we all agree on that as far as replica building and the
Scott Smith. And
Scott Smith, yeah, Jerry's the man though. He's the first dude that really, I think, you can't ban Scott. My God, what a collection and what
that should be
dedication.
there this year again too. Scott's usually there. And
yeah, so that's a wonderful thing. I'd love to go. It's just kind of not in the cards for me hardly ever, but there'll be a time and a place for me to get up there, and I'd love to do it. I love seeing you guys have fun out there. So yeah, I'm with Jim. Hey, I encourage everybody to try to get up there and celebrate up there for sure.
Yeah, and we've got a full band you can hop on and play and stuff. It's it's a great time. There's pizza and soda and dancing girls. no dancing girls. I'm kidding about that. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic time. Everybody gets along. Sometimes it's a little loud, but that's how it is. It's great. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's totally awesome. I mean, this is an awesome thing. Like you're saying, how could we have known? I mean, I was kind of out there on my own. It was me and Kevin Dodds growing up together. I mean, it was just me and him, and we were kind of thinking like, man, we got to be the only people in the world that are this crazy.
Yeah.
And it's been great to meet all you guys and find out that there's actually people that are even crazier than we are. So
there's a great Van Halen community, man. Like all those people that we mentioned, and all the people here, and all the people in the chat. So, got, guys like Fruitcake Tony, they got their own shows and stuff, doing their own thing, promoting all that stuff. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so much, Andrew, for even doing this and having a great space for us to, keep it real here. And, we're grateful for all you guys do. And Simon and Brad, everybody there is, we just love you. We enjoy hanging out with you. And hey, I'm going to go get my son out of the tub. He's turning into a prune. But he doesn't care. He loves playing in the bathtub. He's 4 years old. So I'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Alan, man. Great seeing you, dude.
Cheers.
All right.
Have a good night,
guys. Take care.
Have a good night.
All right.
So
that was nice. That was nice to get him on.
One last thing about EVH Con. Eddie knew about EVH Con, and apparently he thought it was pretty cool. So, that's
really,
yeah.
He definitely knew about it. We know he knew about it. So, I mean, what more can be said? That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff about that too, but
there's all kinds of stuff.
I don't know if
we don't want to spread anything on here.
Yeah, exactly. But it's
stuff that maybe we'll tell you at the end.
It's
cool. A little rumory, so we don't want to.
But we know he definitely knew about it.
Yeah, he definitely knew about it. Yeah.
And you know what? Wow. And this would be something that he would probably appreciate and enjoy, because it's talking about the music and the gear and stuff like that. And that's the stuff he was into, you know what I mean? So, it's definitely right up his alley. It was right.
Yeah. Conks and I joke around that, like, if Eddie ever showed up, right, we'd just be like, hey, what's going on, Ed? How you doing, man?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Just be cool.
Want to get up with the band?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you guys should mention the EVH Con too, and we're talking about that because what one of the highlights for me when we had Chris Gill on, he said, and he covers a lot of guitar players clearly over the years, and he said that nobody, no group, no community gets together and analyzes the gear and the guitars to the extent that Van Halen fans do with the EVH.
That's what I was saying earlier with, like, Jimi Hendrix and Page. Nothing. I love Page, obviously.
Me too. Yeah,
of course.
But no one sits there and analyzes his Les Paul guitars, to the extent that they talk about Van Halen.
The thing for me was that, like, with Eddie, and I think I might have said this before, the thing with Eddie, and like Brian May kind of falls into this category too a little bit, is that you could not go to a music store and buy the guitar. You couldn't do it. It's not like he played a Telecaster, little Jeff Beck playing a little Telecaster, right?
Or like
Strat, or like a Les Paul. Like that's why when I was a kid, like, I thought it was just magic. I swear, I'm not kidding. I thought it was magic. Like, is it the guitar? I mean, you don't know, you get no idea. I'm a little kid, but that's the thing. That's, that I think that's part of it too, of the mystique, is that you couldn't just go and get his guitar.
Good point.
You couldn't go and, you can now for some, for all intents and purposes, but back then you couldn't get it, and like, that's what we were kind of talking about backstage, where Eddie, the Super Strat didn't exist before Eddie. I was arguing with the guy, I was arguing with this guy, and he was kind of like poo-pooing on Eddie, right? He was a Jimmy Page fan, so we kind of went back about, I love
Sure.
Page. We were going back and forth about Page's contributions to guitar design versus, not even music, just guitar design, right? I'm like, what did Page do, really? Right? Whereas I go, he sent me a picture of his gear, and it had he had like an Explorer with the Floyd on it. I'm like, look, the reason you have a Floyd, the whole Floyd thing, I'm like, Eddie was partially responsible for that. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you're basically proving my point, dude. You know what I mean? And like, so it's like the gear, and then like, we were talking earlier about, the Magic Marshall and the Marshalls and stuff. It's like, how did he get that? And the other thing is, like, Eddie was also kind of like getting people off the scent by giving them disinformation,
Yeah.
Where, he blew up a couple of amps telling them to turn up that Variac, instead of down,
A few people blew up their amps doing
Yeah,
that.
a few people blew up their amps that way. But yeah, I mean,
And that's why he came out and changed the story, didn't he? Because he felt sorry for a lot of these young cats blowing their amps up.
Yeah, absolutely. And but yeah, that's the thing. Like, there weren't, and kind of like Charvel, Charvel, they had their own story, but it's kind of tied in to like Eddie, because Eddie thanked them on Van Halen 1, and that's how everybody started hearing about Charvel, in a sense, and started investigating Charvel.
So this is the way that I see it with Eddie, and I think it sort of ties in to what Alan was saying before, and to offset maybe to balance what Alan was saying before. And if Alan's watching or hearing this, I'd love to hear what his comments or his thought is. So okay, so maybe Al, is right that Eddie didn't understand music theory to the extent, for example, that say Jimmy Page did. As far as a composer goes. Okay. But I'm going to back you up, Jim. Look what Eddie did as far as innovation from the playing perspective of a guitar player, of having a compact guitar that's just going to work with one pickup, the Floyd Rose that you said, about going and talking and having the ability to talk to an amp builder, about getting this pre-gain stage going, to get that brown sound instantaneously. So he certainly made up for any shortfalls, I think, in other areas as this complete package.
Well, Conks kind of said it perfect, man. Like, and when he was talking with Alan, it's like, there's guys that are proficiently, technically better than Ed. Steve Vai, Satriani, I don't know, Lukather, whatever, right? Yeah. But the thing is, well, sorry, my dog's over here checking out a bug. But like, I can't, and I love Vai in the context of a band like David Lee Roth's band and Whitesnake, and I love Vai, but he's just his music, his solo music, is way too out there for me. You can't come home, you can't be in your car listening to like solo Vai. I can't, but you can be in your car listening to Mean Street and stuff,
Yep.
Same
thing with Dream Theater. I love Dream Theater and Petrucci. It's the same thing, bro. You can't throw that on and cruise to, but you can with Van Halen. I dig it, bro. I dig where you're coming from.
That's the other important element of Eddie that people don't talk about. They talk about the guitar playing and Eruption, but the songwriting, it's just like the Van Halen catalog. It's just untouchable. I mean, I don't get.
Yeah.
I was arguing with people about Aerosmith, and I feel bad because it's like I love Aerosmith, but it was like people were trying to like, Eddie Trunk said they are the greatest American rock band. And I jumped in and I was like, no, Van Halen was the greatest. And then I started arguing with Aerosmith fans, attacking me everywhere. Nobody was coming to my defense. But
I would have known. I would have done it.
I would have done it.
Yeah, I would have done it. I let you down, Conks. I let you down.
I'm your mate. I'm your man.
Yeah.
They were coming at me furiously. And I listen, and my whole point was they didn't write their own songs. I mean, after 1986, they ultimately became Bon Jovi. They had Desmond Child, they had Jim Valance, they had all these other
I checked out.
songwriters, Mark Hudson, they had all these people writing and co-writing their songs with them. Van Halen never, ever did that. You know, the only song they ever did that on was I'll Wait. And that was Michael McDonald, you know, writing the melody with Roth. But it's just like, and so I argued with them and they said, oh, then they jumped in about the covers. Oh, what do you mean Van Halen did this song? I go, those are covers. That's not original Van Halen songs written by other people like Aerosmith did with, you know, Looks Like a Lady or whatever like that, you know what I mean? Or Ragdoll. It's like Ragdoll is you know, I mean, I've heard the original demos from like Jim Valance on his website. You can hear the, you know, Take Me to the Other Side, that Aerosmith song. You can hear the original demo that he wrote with the horns. It's like he was the, you know, Eddie was the well, like he'd say the bucket of water or the well, and then, you know, where everything started with. Well, those songs were written by other people, you know what I mean? And then brought to Aerosmith where they finished them, you know, but Van Halen never did that. And I also said, turn on any baseball game tonight, hear the playoffs, and you're going to hear Jump being played on the organ in the background, or, you know, any hockey game, you're going to hear Panama playing, or, you know, Hot for Teacher, the drum lick at the beginning at baseball, you know, the Mets play that all the time. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's everywhere. And they're untouchable. Their greatest hits album, there's like 20 on a double album. There's 24 songs. And it was, you know, if you looked at it, it went like a Roth song, a Hagar song, a Roth song. It was like, you know, they staggered them like that. I mean, other than those 3 new songs they put on that, it's like every song on that is, you know, some people put out greatest hits albums and they only have like 2 or 3 songs that you'd even know, and they have like 10 greatest hits on their album that you don't even know. It's a joke. It's like they legitimately have like over 20, 25 songs that everybody knows because they're played on rock radio like every day. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
That's why I'm like, you know, never mind the music, because the music's completely different category, man. Like you can't. I mean, that music is untouchable, man.
Exactly,
it's untouchable. It's like it's life changing. How many of us here remembers like the first time they heard, you know, a Van Halen song and it changed your life? You know it changed your life because you wouldn't be here if it didn't. You know.
Yeah. So what about the album though that Van Halen did with Gary Schroen? The second album that's not been released as well, you know, so they've got that in the vault too, guys, you know, so you know, there's at least a couple of albums.
I'm with John, man. Like I would listen, you know, release whatever you have. Here's the thing, like just release it. What's it gonna hurt? What it's gonna hurt you if you make more money? You know what I mean?
Well, Jim, you know what I like? I was talking earlier before saying, like, you know, these books that are written, it gives us like a fuller picture of the person. It's just like, it's the same exact thing with these. I want to hear Ed playing the piano, just jamming, noodling on the piano. You know what I mean? I want to hear all this stuff because it's just like, it kind of completes the picture. You know what I mean? It's the same with him and, you know, Alex jamming around on something for 10 or 15 minutes, an idea or something like that. I want to hear like a box set of just all kinds of like bits and pieces and scraps of, you know, music and stuff like that, you know. I do anyway. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to see that too, because it just gives you a more rounded picture of who this guy was, you know.
And like
so you know how Roth wasn't you guys know how Roth wasn't touring with traveling with the band on that last tour, but have you guys heard of anything about what Eddie was doing on that last tour? Was he working on any new material? Because, you know, normally, you know, that's where the guitar player or the musician kind of is working on stuff. Historically, it's when they're on tour. Was Eddie doing anything like that, Jim, that you heard of on that last tour?
No, I didn't hear. You know, like sometimes, like, you know, back in the day, you'd hear like you knew like Jump existed because Ed, before 1984, Ed's like, he's on the Diver Down tour, he's working on some music. I think for this tour, man, I don't know. I feel I've going into 2015. I mean, at that point we knew Ed was sick and stuff. Um, we thought he was doing better, and he was doing okay, and he's doing good enough to tour, right? He played great, but like I remember, and I think I might have said this to Conks one day. I mean, I remember going into 2015 and thinking, this is probably the last time we're going to see Eddie. I feel like Ed had said a couple of things around around the time after Van Halen 3 that like obviously he was disappointed. I feel like he didn't really feel the need to do any new music because he thought like nobody cared or wanted to listen to it or whatever.
I think he was angry. I think
Yeah.
he was pissed off. It's like, well, you don't get any new music.
Yeah.
You didn't like Van Halen 3. Well, you don't get any new. You didn't give it a chance. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's it. I'm done. I don't need to,
So I think to answer your question, Andrew, like for 2015, that's just me. I just felt like Ed was trying to just like play great. He looked great. When I saw him, he was smiling the whole time. It was Eddie Van Halen. He looked like he was having a great effing time up there, right? But I think he was just trying to. I don't think he was looking forward to releasing another album. When Hagar got in touch with them, they were discussing some kind of tour. I would have loved to see them tour. You know what I mean? But I don't think we were going to get any more music. And
I gotta be honest with you. Me personally, that's what I wanted. I wanted more music. I mean, the tours were great and everything like that, but it's just like when every band goes through like a cycle in their life where they try to be relevant and then they fight it. U2 has been trying to be relevant now for like 20 years. And it's finally eating them up. They're a nostalgia act, like the Stones are, like Van Halen is.
Yeah.
It's the truth. You cannot fight it. It's like eventually everyone turns into a nostalgia act. It's like you don't make new music anymore. Billy Joel says, listen, I'm not writing any songs anymore. He just goes out and he just plays his catalog. And that's what Van Halen turned into. And as much as I love that, going to see them every couple of years, nothing gave me more of a rush than hearing that album for the first time, the songs, and just the hair on my arms going up and just be like blown away by, oh my God, this is incredible. And I don't get that feeling anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's what did it for me. And it's sad to think because I always thought that, man, Van Halen's awful quiet. Eddie must be up in that studio writing music. There must be tons of stuff in there. But I get the feeling that wasn't happening at all. I get the feeling that he wasn't feeling very well. I don't think he did anything. I don't really know that he wrote much anymore. Even they said half of A Different Kind of Truth was new. It wasn't really new. It was from those 2001, I think, Roth sessions. Even stuff like As Is and stuff like that. All those 5 or 6 new songs weren't really new. They were from those 2000, that album they did with Roth at the time that Michael Anthony, everybody talked about, that it was like pretty much done. Like they did a bunch of songs that were, I don't know what stages they were in of completion, but but even so there wasn't anything really new. I don't know what the newest thing he had written was, but it's like it's kind of sad because I thought, but then you do hear that he was pretty sick over the years. You know what I mean? It was just like it was a constant thing, and I think that affected a lot. Everybody said, like they're lazy, they're not doing anything. But I think that had a lot to do with it. After 2001, when he was diagnosed with that cancer, and then we know he had that bad period of years from up to 2006, 2007. I mean, I don't think he did much of anything writing music after that. You know what I mean? Because I think it was back and forth with the cancer and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I meant. Like with the 2015, I didn't want to really say it, but I felt like Ed he was just looking to stay alive.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think he was just trying to live life and do things that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? I get the feeling that he didn't really enjoy touring. A lot of people don't. It's like, so I think he, as you get older, you get wiser, because even at 2015, he said, like he let his hair go gray, and he's like, listen, man, I'm 60 years old. He goes, I'm not a teenager anymore. Roth needs to grow up. He's not, who he was. You know what I mean? And I think I think that's where he was at. I agree with you 100%. I think he was just trying to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just enjoy his cars, go racing with his brother, spend time with his son, his wife or whatever, do whatever he was doing, just living life. But, I guess that's what happens. And especially when you're facing your own mortality, you know what I mean? I think that, obviously he had to think a lot about that. So.
Well, I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you guys, because there's been stop starts with Van Halen. So when this came out, Volume 1, Greatest Hits came out, when was that? 96, around that period there. So I was excited because normally you associate when a band does a Greatest Hits, that could be, a pathway to something else that's going to be coming, after some original material. So I was excited. We never got that. But Jim, and then John, if you want to tell us your thoughts. So then A Different Kind of Truth, that was being spoken about, was coming out in social media. Then they released Tattoo, I think, as the first single and stuff like that. And we were all excited. And I remember jumping on some forums and all that and people going, nah. And I was just excited. I was just like everybody else, I think, that I was directly involved with, just excited to get some new stuff. So what did you think, Jim, leading up to A Different Kind of Truth and getting that and your thoughts and experiences around that time?
Yeah, you know what? My thing was I heard Tattoo and I was like, oh boy. For the first time ever, I was like, oh boy. Okay. That's all right. Okay. And then my friends were really concerned too. Okay. My friends were concerned too. And then I forget what happened. Like, I think somebody sent me the tracks like a week before they were released, I think. Because I remember listening to them and like messaging or emailing, probably just emailing. I don't think I had Messenger back then. Emailing my friends and being like, oh no, dudes, this is they released like the worst song. This album's pretty goddamn good. You know what I mean? So I was happy to see that. I think I was telling Conks this too a while back, and that like when they released it,
Jimmy Carr.
Jimmy, what's up, man?
Jimmy Carr.
I thought that like it would have been in like more fanfare. Like I don't know, like I missed like I felt like the world didn't react right to it. Like I thought it was gonna be, like I knew that it wasn't like that in 2012, but like, like in '84, world premiere video, Hot for Teacher or whatever. You're like, oh my
100%.
But it just seemed like to me, it just seemed like they released it. I got it. I liked it. And that was it.
Yeah, I agree.
It's almost like albums. It's like albums these days. Name a band, they'll release an album, and before, like I miss the days when like bands released an album. Maybe they released one song ahead of the album. Okay, kind of like Why Can't This Be Love, for example, right? They released that maybe a month before the album. You're like, oh my god, song's great, and you get the album, and then like they release tracks throughout the year, and the album has a long life, whereas now, like, not knocking Wolf, but like before the release of Wolf's album, they released like 7 songs. You basically already had the album.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't anything exciting. And that's what I mean. It's like now bands, the new Def Leppard comes out, like the core fans buy it, right? And then like it's number 1 for a week, and then the next week did Def Leppard even release an album? Nobody remembers, So that's kind of like what I felt with like, and I felt bad. Like I thought it was going to be like, hey, world, you wanted new Van Halen, you got new Van Halen,
They're back.
They're back. You wanted Van Halen, you got Van Halen, the greatest band in the world, Van Halen. But it wasn't like that. And it was just like, okay, here's an album. And then, you went and saw the tour and stuff. I saw the 2012 tour. It was phenomenal, but it just didn't seem like, like what I thought it should be. I thought it would have been more, I don't know, announced, more pushed. I don't know.
What are your favorite? What are your
That's how the
favorite?
music is.
What are your favorite 3 or 4 songs on that album, Jim?
I love Chinatown, man. Chinatown. I love As Is, and I'm trying to think of the names of the other songs, but right now. But yeah, I when they did Chinatown live, man, I thought that was really really cool. You know,
I
and
gravitated towards the newer ones too, like As Is, Honey Baby,
Big River.
Sweetie Doll. I loved The Trouble with Never. I thought that should have been
that's the trouble with
single.
Never.
I
Yes,
thought that had a catchy chorus,
yeah,
and to me that was kind
yeah.
of a Van Halen-y. I thought that would have been a good
That
single.
was very Rothy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely thought that would have been a great single, and I thought that I also liked what's it called? You and Your Blues. I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of cool. It was different. You know, like those are my kind of favorite ones that I always go back and listen to. Like Blood and what is that one called?
Blood and Fire.
Blood and Fire. I
Yeah.
hated that. I thought I loved the demo Ripley so much better than the what the song turned into, you know. I mean, it had moments in it. Like certain things have like moments, you know what I mean? Like that part where Roth said, "Heard you miss me, I'm back," right before the solo. I thought that was like so awesome.
Yeah.
That solo was great, that part of it. But
Yeah, that's what I mean. I told my buddies, I'm like, man, don't worry about Tattoo.
Yeah.
The rest of the album isn't like Tattoo. No disrespect to anybody that liked Tattoo.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
but
It was a weird single. It was a weird single.
It was a strange single. You know, it was a strange single. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure Roth had a lot to do with it, and you know their dysfunction was showing through on that album too. It's just like they didn't really do any videos. It was almost like they did that one at the Roxy. They got up there and then they filmed that thing, but it's just like you got the feeling that it was. You know, to get them together in the room on the same page, it was probably difficult. I know John Shanks. I hated the production on that album. I don't like the sound of it. I mean, Alex's drums. 5150 is a little Clubhouse, but I just love the way the drums sound in his drums on the later albums anyway that they did there. And I just didn't like the drums from the Henson, and I was kind of surprised at Ross Hogarth and John Shanks. You don't get much better than them, but I think they were at the mercy of the band. I know, Eddie's guitar tone, I don't think was that great. I think the mix is terrible. I think they felt like it was the reunion of Eddie and Dave, kind of like Mick and Keith or Robert Plant and Page. So Dave's voice was way, way up there in the mix. Eddie's guitar was way, way up in the mix. I felt like Wolf's bass, because Eddie probably said, put the bass louder, was up there. And I felt like Alex's drums kind of get lost in the mix on that album. That's just me. I like to have kicking like drums, like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge or Balancing. And those are like, they punch you. You can feel that. I can't feel the kick drum in the speakers on like A Different Kind of Truth. You know
That's
what I mean?
what I wanted to ask Alan. I forgot to ask him this. You just brought that up. Is like he mentioned that he doesn't like anything past 89. I'm like, you don't like For Unlawful?
No, I know, right? No, he doesn't.
Well, For Unlawful is like For Unlawful is like the Hagar era, Fair Warning.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Don't even go there with him.
No, I didn't know that about him. I didn't know that about him.
That's it.
Yeah.
There
is one fault.
That's when Don Landee left. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the cutoff point.
When Don Landee left, Alan left. Left the building with him.
What do you guys? So we're talking about A Different Kind of Truth, and I really appreciate your comments. And obviously, there's a lot of dudes in the chat agreeing too. They're throwing up a couple of songs there. Big River, I mentioned that when you guys were talking about it. I'm going to fire this question to you first, John, and then we'll fire it off to Jim. The Downtown sessions that were released, the acoustic session. The videos that was accompanying that accompanied the music. Got some thoughts on the Downtown sessions, please, guys.
Okay, I'll go first.
It was horrible.
First, I understand. I understand the idea. Yeah, I get the idea, right? Acoustic, but look, in general, I'm not crazy about anybody doing acoustic, especially like a rock band, like acoustic Night Ranger. Nah. Van Halen does not translate acoustic. It's not like I don't know, the Stones or
Yeah.
or like, Indigo Girls or something, I mean, it's Van Halen. Doesn't translate, doesn't translate that great. But I do understand the sentiment, like, okay, let's break it down, but you need like, if you're in Van Halen, don't play without any electricity.
Yeah, that was a
You know what I mean?
misstep. A
Yeah.
big misstep. It was horrible, I thought.
No, I dug the kind of like the interview section, when they were
Yeah.
talking and stuff, about old times, and I love hearing that. I love hearing them, like hearing them talk about old times, because it comes from like my idea in my head where it's just those four guys that lived that life, that lived that journey. Those four guys, right? And
Yeah.
like I loved it. I love the idea of like Dave being like, "Hey Al, remember when we were at like the whiskey and you
Yeah.
threw up in the back, right? And that chick slipped on it and stuff. Man, that was hilarious."
Yeah. I
Just like
agree.
stuff that only they know. Oh man. So I love them like talking about like the olden days and doing this song and like playing like, I don't know, Funky Town in their set and whatever it was. It's because it's just those four guys that lived that story.
I agree with you 100%. That's the most valuable part of that. Not them playing, is them talking, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know, the old days like that.
Mhm.
You know.
Mhm.
And just like matter of fact, like it was like almost like they weren't being filmed. Oh,
Oh
remember,
yeah, right.
remember when this, that's
That's what I mean. It's just like they're at like their kitchen table or whatever talking. Hey man, remember when that happened and this and you did this and then she slapped you in the face or whatever.
exactly. That was awesome. Awesome stuff.
It's really interesting because if you go back and have a look at it, you have a look at Eddie, and he's just smiling. He's just looking down and he's just looking at Dave, and it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like he's looking at the guy saying nothing's changed here.
That was like,
Nothing's changed with this dude.
but that was like a rare moment where they probably couldn't have conversations like that, because you hear all this stuff now. It's like in 2015, like Eddie wasn't even speaking to Dave. Dave wasn't speaking to Eddie at all, and he's like, I don't think he's even talking to Al anymore. He was talking to Al, but he doesn't talk to him anymore either. So it's just like that moment. It was like, what was that Robert De Niro movie when they were like catatonic and they were like the people, and then they woke up for one day. Remember? Did you know the movie I'm talking about? Awakenings, it was called. And they came back and they were like, they were lucid before they went back into their like coma or whatever they were in. Yeah, I felt like that was like a little opening there,
right? A little glimpse into like what they might have been talking about. Yeah.
And then it went back to their normal dislike of each other.
Yeah. Oh, after that story, I just remembered I hate you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And
I just remembered I don't like you at all.
And Dave has a swipe at Wolfgang saying, "Oh, you're too young to remember," or something like this, or "You won't know because you're too young," or something. And it was like that fly on the wall kind of aspect with the questions and the answers was certainly interesting. I agree with you guys too, but the music, oh my lord.
Yeah, I'm generally out for anything acoustic. Like if I hear like my favorite rock band is doing acoustic, like a couple years back, like Tesla. I've always loved Tesla, and they came around here and they were doing an acoustic thing, and they predominantly almost launched that whole thing with like 5-man acoustical jam, and but like I'm like, oh, they're playing acoustic, I'm out. You know what I mean? I don't, I understand the idea. I'm just not a fan. I want to hear.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah,
I'm not into it. Like,
yeah,
some I'll put up with, but like most rock bands, I just don't. I don't go for it.
Yeah, like my buddy went and saw the that Def Leppard Motley Crue tour, and Def Leppard did a little acoustic thing. I'm like, oh boy,
no.
No, the only guy that can do that, who's allowed to do that, is Clapton.
He has that
acoustic set.
Yeah,
and then he just.
Andrew, speaking of that, I gotta send you this link. I forget who it was. I saw this link. I posted on my Facebook. It was a couple of weeks ago, where it was it's like professionally shot. It's these musicians with this girl guitar player. I forget her name, right? And they're doing Layla, right?
Wow.
And the first half, like the first verse, is the acoustic. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, the acoustic, version, right? I'm like, wow. And then for the second verse, it's the electric. I'm like,
Wow.
dude, it's mind blowing, dude. I'm gonna send you the link.
Please do.
If you love
Please do.
Layla, like I do, and the girl plays. I forget her name. I wish I remembered her name. She, I forget her name, but she's a famous like female guitar player, and she killed that. She did her own solo, killed it, like goosebumps.
Wow.
And that takes a lot for me to say. That was good. I'll send you the link. Anyway, we'll get back to Van Halen.
Cheers, brother.
Do you have it on? Is that what you're looking at?
No, I was
Oh.
just messing around with it.
Oh. There you go.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
It was really good. It was really good. I gotta say, I was like, poo-pooing it when I first saw it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, no, this is good. Anyway, but yeah, not too keen on a lot of acoustic stuff.
Yeah. Listen, like it's got its place for like singer-songwriters. It's
Yeah.
good. Like,
James Taylor.
It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, James Taylor.
but it's not
maybe
just
a
hard
little
rock.
Indigo Girl.
And not just hard rock bands. It's just like regular rock bands. I don't like it really much either.
Yeah. I understand the idea of people wanting to do it, but it doesn't really it takes a lot for it to. It takes some super talent for you.
And it
At
better
least
be
for me.
really good. It better be really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One rock band pulled it off though. Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses with that.
Oh, okay.
acoustic
Yeah,
out.
you're right about that. You're right about that. I do love
Guns
that.
N'
You're right about that.
GNR Lies.
Yes.
Half of that was acoustic, and the other half, that was pretty good, bros. When when was that? 89, 90, around that era.
Yeah, I think
No, I
so.
think that was around 88. I think it was 88, 89. Yeah.
Okay, a year after we had been smacked in the face with Appetite for Destruction, and then we get this, and it's like, holy cow!
Holly nailed it right there. Everyone vibrates at a different level, and certain music turns them on or off. That's Holly. That's boom right there. That's the best thing I've heard all night. Right there. Excellent.
Right on. Yeah.
And Bent Tom, he's on fire in there too. Saying, wait, I got to back up. There was a great one in there. If you don't have any balls, it's supposed to make you feel like your balls got rocked off twice. I guess Tom doesn't like things acoustically either. When I hear bands doing rockers acoustically, I just want to throw up in my own mouth, swallow it, and throw it up again and spit it out. Tell us how you really feel, Tom.
Yeah, man. Tom's on our side, man.
Yeah, exactly. No acoustic.
Yeah. No acoustics, please.
And what's interesting about Guns N' Roses, when they released that album, they never did an acoustic set. It wasn't like they introduced an acoustic set after that. It was just Electric Jim from song one.
I did see him in Hartford in 92 or 93. It was like the tail end of Use Your Illusions, and they did it was kind of cool. They brought out like some sofas, and they kind of look, they did stuff like Patience. Okay, Patience, the original version is acoustic. Cool.
Sure.
That's what I mean. Like, if the original version is acoustic, then great. I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? That's the version.
Right.
You won't want to. It's like the opposite works too. Like, you don't want to hear a rocked out version of Patience. You know what I mean? Right. But yeah, so they came out and they did Patience, and I don't know, something, one or two other songs, but it worked because they do have acoustic songs in their repertoire. So
Jerry's right. MTV Unplugged started that.
Yeah.
Actually, unfortunately, it was Eric Clapton Unplugged. That was the first.
Yeah,
Our mate Eric Clapton again, the trendsetter. He started it, and then everyone else jumped on the band. He won 5 Grammys with it, and I thought, there might be some money.
Yeah.
Might be some money here.
There might be some money here. Yeah.
There were, out of all the ones they did, there were a handful that were actually pretty good. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously Clapton's was the top of the food chain as far as that, but there were a few other ones that were, good. But I really, some of them were just
There were some
totally-
bad ones. There were
yeah,
some
there
bad
was
ones, bro.
real stinkers too. Exactly. But anyway,
I have a good Guns N' Roses story. So I was in Boston in college in '87. I don't know. Conks might know this story. And I heard, Appetite was out for like a week, right? Because BCN was playing Out to Get Me, and they were playing, Welcome to the Jungle and stuff. And behind my dorm was this very famous club in Boston called the Paradise Club, right? And U2 played there. That's another story. And I was like, and I was walking by, it was like steps away from my dorm, like around the corner, like literally around the corner. And I was
Roll
walking
home.
by there one day, and I saw on like the marquee Guns N' Roses. I was like, oh shit, that's that band that I just heard, So I go to my roommate. Hey, dude, man, there's this band, Guns N' Roses. They're playing like the Paradise, like I don't know, it was like a Tuesday night, okay. And again, this is like the album had just come out. You got to remember that album didn't blow up for another year, right? So nobody knew who they were, and nobody wanted to go with me, right? I finally got this one guy to go with me. Okay, so we're getting ready. It's like 7:30. We're gonna go down there because I remember it was Guns N' Roses and this Japanese band EZO. If you guys remember,
that. Yeah.
So I called my buddy. I'm like, come on, man, let's do it. I don't know, man. I'm like, oh, you know what? Forget you, man. I went by myself. Okay, so I'm walking to the place, right? Doors are still closed. Okay, it's like it was like October. It was November maybe. It was a little cold, right? And I remember the doors were closed, and it's me and two other people in line ahead of me. Okay, and there's a tour bus out in front of the place. Okay, and it's me and like two other girls. Okay, waiting to get in. Okay, and oh, sorry. That's my dog. I think my sister had it. My the bus the doors to the bus open up, right? And this guy comes out and he's like, Slash wants to know which one of you girls wants to take a ride.
And Jim, you raised your hand.
So no, not me, man. But it was an interesting night because it was me and like really 13, 14 other people in this place.
Wow.
With the original
Wow.
Guns N' Roses. It was crazy.
And
And
how-
somewhere years later, I think down in my basement somewhere, I have a bootleg of that show.
No way.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was just like 13 or 14 other people. That was it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I couldn't get anybody to go with me. Nobody
I had,
wanted
like,
to go.
I had something like that with Alice in Chains when they were like they were opening for Extreme right before like Porno Graffiti came out, and I was at the Cat Club in New York in the city. It's a tiny little club, and and you could tell that they were going to be huge. It was just a matter of time that they were going to be huge, man. It was a pretty cool show.
Yeah.
But you know what? If we do this again, I want to I got an idea for the next one. I'd like to formulate a complete list. So put your thinking caps on for next time we ever do this. Any song that Eddie Van Halen ever played on, not Van Halen, anything else. We know a few of them, obviously, like that, but think really hard because he's on a bunch of things, like, I'm keeping score of all the people that diss him or whatever like that. Like Lindsey Buckingham dissed Eddie recently. I don't know if you guys saw that. He dissed him. Like I said, the documentary guy dissed him. There's a lot of people that have dissed him. So I'm keeping score with all that. And I'm keeping score of the people that were cool with him, like Pete Townsend, like Jimmy Page. Vernon Reed. There's like so many people who said there's so many people, even like celebrities that said that I was kind of surprised about that said nice things about him. But Oh, Roger Waters also lately. He just said something bad about Eddie too, and I goes, does he remember that Eddie played on one of his songs? I mean, that's was it Lost Boys Calling? But it made me start to think about all these songs and that Eddie's on or whatever like that. And there's a lot of like little ones, believe it or not. I mean, we can go into it on next time if we do this.
That's cool.
Because we can put a list together of things.
Yeah. Let's book it in, guys. Bent Tom's mentioning Nicolette Larson there as well, too. Playing on a song on her album, and she became famous doing another cover of Neil Young's song, didn't she? So
exactly.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a great show. We'll book it in because the Jim and John show on the 5150 show, ladies and gentlemen, is an infrequent show, but it's certainly one that we all look forward to getting together and hanging out on.
I know I do, man. I love the show.
Oh, look, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think you guys got a great show. No question.
Yeah.
And one day I'd like to meet the great Simon, because Simon's my hero, man. I think that guy is the greatest Van Halen player on this planet.
We'll get him on, bro. The thing with Simon is that he's gigging, and that's one of the interesting things. Yeah. So
Andrew,
I'll pass.
Andrew, this is more important, okay?
Yeah.
I'll tell him that. I'll tell him.
Get him on here, Andrew. Next time he needs to be here.
I'll tell him that. But we've got a couple of shows lined up, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, the idea that John has mentioned about getting together, talking about some songs that Eddie and some numbers that Eddie has played on. So we'll get a list and we'll talk about that. If you guys want to join us for that, jump on. Also, we'll be back here in a couple of hours on the channel, talking about Rory Gallagher's Juice album with the Rock Professor and Brad.
I really love when you guys go through like album by track. I mean, that's so interesting, man.
We've got to get you guys on one of those shows.
Stuff or some other albums, like some Clapton albums that you guys go through. I mean, that is so goddamn interesting, man. Yeah, I love that.
Thanks, bro. And remember, we're only fans, and we're just offering a fan's perspective. We're not offering like Rick Beato's in-depth analysis, which is what he's uniquely able to do for us. But I just wanted to mention one thing while John was talking about his negative list and his positive list of celebrities. We got to remember that Clapton's in the middle, because Clapton hasn't said anything about Eddie. And I think we did a show a couple of shows ago where we thought maybe it's a bit strange that Clapton hasn't said anything, given the fact that Eddie has mentioned numerous times over the years, numerous times in untold interviews, how important Clapton was to him.
Well, there's all these pictures of him with Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was during his drinking days, Clapton's,
Oh, yeah. They were going for drink. Yeah. Trying to... Here in New Zealand, we've got the same, try and drink each other under the table.
Yeah. But, well,
I love Clapton's autobiography, man.
It's a wonderful biography, and it's well worth getting. And one of the great things about that biography, guys, is if you haven't read it, please go ahead and read it. But I'll just say one thing. It's part of Clapton's thing now. He makes a lot of apologies in his biography. He upset a lot of people over the years because of his attitude, because of his emotional instability when he was younger, and obviously the things that he did to people when he was especially drinking. So it's a wonderful testament to a guy that has gone through the other end, Jim. And he's made a few apologies, and I love it. I love it because of that. Because we all know that he was a difficult guy to be around with for a long, long time.
I still find him fascinating, and the fact that he married that woman from like Ohio, and they had a house in like Ohio, and he has three daughters, and it's just like it's like just crazy when you think about that. It's just like this, you
Yeah,
know,
he's just living in Ohio.
right?
Yeah.
It's just like people see him in Ohio. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
just like incredible that he's just
Yeah.
where he's at in his life now. That we're at this point now. It's like I don't
It's
know.
almost like he's like, you know, like nobody really recognizes him, you know, or whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
Right? Exactly.
And you know, we don't want to turn this show into a political show because we avoid politics on the show. But you know, he took a lot of shit over the last couple of years because of his view and opinion on this global thing. You know, and when you consider where he came from, guys, and what he was a representative of during the 60s, where people questioned everything. You know, young cats and young girls were questioning everything, and he was just saying, "Where's that gone? Where's this questioning?" Oh, you know. So, but I don't want to take us down, and you know. But he got a lot of shit for that.
But you are right. You are right, Andrew, because you know, if you read that autobiography, that will inform you on things like that. Like we were talking about with Eddie. This is why we want to. This is things you want to know. You get a better picture of the person with, you know, the more you read and the more you know about them. And that's a perfect example with Clapton. It's like you'll know where his opinions are formulated, like his childhood. He had no father figure, and it's just like all you know, all this plays into stuff that went on through his life, just like with anybody, basically. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the documentary that came out a couple of years ago, you know, and you know, the apology that he had to make on that documentary because of the racist rant that he did, you know, when he was drunk off his face. Now, if anybody knows anything about an alcoholic, you know, they just say weird, stupid things, you know, and you know, and he made an apology for that, and he still talks about that. But when you put that consistently in with what the guy is as a musician and what he did for these black musicians by talking about the fact that he was saying very early on, Jim, don't listen to me. Go and listen to Big Bill Broonzy. Go and listen to Muddy Waters. Go and listen to these guys, you know, Robert Johnson. Go and listen to them. Certainly, I think outweighs any drunken rant he would have said.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like you said, anybody that had a drinking problem like that, everybody will know a story about like something when they just say weird things like that. It's just that's part of the whole thing, I guess, you know.
And he tells us in his biography what he used to do daily, you know, how he planned his, you know, and how, like, so again, you know, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but you know, he would stop drinking at 4 o'clock. So he's drunk as a dog at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He'd sleep for a couple of hours so that he would be sober enough to go and play a gig.
Right.
You know, and then after the gig and just get hammered, you know, and by 4 o'clock he would have drunk 2 bottles of brandy. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Wow. And he's still, and now it's still alive to tell about it. You know what I mean? That's what's even more incredible, you know?
No doubt.
Yeah. It's sad but true. But there's one point though, one point in that biography that broke his heart, and I think that set maybe something off on him when he was away with his mother and her husband's family at the time, and her son to her husband at the time deliberately sat on Clapton's acoustic guitar, you know, and broke the neck. That was a point where I think Clapton just fell into this shell, and you know, it took a long time to get out of it.
Yeah, completely understandable. You know what I mean? That would take forever to get out of that.
Awesome. Hey guys, it's been a pleasure. We've been on the air for 2 hours. We were lucky enough to have Alan Garber come in here and hang out with us. We're going to be back. Jim and John and I will get together. We'll work out whether we're going to be here in a fortnight or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Same time, same day, but in 2 or 3 weeks' time, we'll get together and we're going to talk about some of our 5 great. Each of us will pick 5 great songs that Eddie's played on. We'll talk about them and we'll share our list. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, definitely.
Book it, Dano.
Now we got homework. Thanks, Conks.
Yeah,
We got homework.
You have an
We
assignment.
got homework.
Everybody in the chat, you have an assignment.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Conks is
thank
gonna
you,
grade
everybody. I'm going to ask John to say thanks, and then Jim going to give you the last word, brother.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. Please subscribe to our channel if you're watching a replay. Go to our channels page and support all our friends on there. Send them a sub. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Adios.
Short and sweet. No, that's oh yeah, it's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Make me one, man. Make me one. Yeah, I appreciate, I love the show. I'm glad everybody, tuned in. Thanks for that. I mean, people tuning in to hear John and I's stupid opinions. So thank you. And yeah, looking forward to doing it again, man. Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Oh yeah, subscribe.
Oh,
Subscribe.
well, it's been fantastic. It's a pleasure always hanging out with Jim and John. Jim V and John C.
Yes. There you go.
There you go.
Bye,
All right,
everyone.
guys. Bye.